Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining me. You're at home with Melissa and we're out in the garden. Obviously, we're near the red raspberry patch or black raspberry patch. We're out here by the black raspberries, and the reason we're here is I was just out here doing my harvesting for the day and thought of some tips that I didn't include in the video I uploaded. I keep saying updated. The video I uploaded a few days ago. I didn't include this information, but as I was picking, I thought, you know what? It might be really helpful to let people know these little tips, especially if you're beginners to this. If you've been harvesting berries for a long time, this kind of berry, then odds are you've come to this conclusion yourself through trial and error. But if you're pretty new to it, you might not have. And I think it'll be nice for us to kind of hopefully spare you some of the pain and frustration that you could go through in trying to figure these things out through trial and error. So this is more for beginners than anybody else, and it's in particular helpful, I think, in dealing with the thorny varieties. I might have a few tips in here that you can use for the thornless as well, but primarily we're focusing on the thorny varieties of these plants because there's a lot you need to keep in mind in order to help yourself be injured less. I hate to say it, but yes, injured less. And the first thing is the way to dress. And it's up to you, of course, how you dress when you're harvesting these things. But I always wear an old stained top, stained up, holes in it, things like that, because when I'm out there, those thorns are going to grab a hold of the cloth of my clothing. And if I wear something that's pristine, it's going to tear it, and then I'm going to have another ruined top. I have plenty of ruined tops that I use for this kind of thing. I don't need any more. I want to preserve the things that are in good shape and keep them in good shape. So I wear the old, stained, torn shirts, and I wear sleeveless tops, no hat, and short trousers. And I have reasons for this, and it might sound counterintuitive, but it works for me. I find that the thorns, even if I wear the long sleeves and long trousers and things, they still manage to get through them into my skin. So I'm still having to extract them from my skin, but I'm also having to go through the cloth. And I find that they hold on more strongly to the cloth than to my skin. It's easier to get them out of my skin than the cloth. And don't be afraid. I mean, if you haven't done this before ever, you're thinking, oh my gosh, thorns stuck in you. They stay attached to the plant. They don't stick in your skin and come off the plant and you've got these thorns in there that you then have to pluck out. That doesn't happen. You pull the plant, the cane, away from you and the thorns go with it, but they do get into your skin. It hurts about the same as a cat scratch, I think. Right around about as much as a cat scratch. So if you can tolerate that, you can tolerate the scratches that you'll get from harvesting berries. And they don't have any kind of toxin on the thorns that goes in and causes you to get any kind of blisters or raised skin. They don't cause a reaction. It's just a scratch. So it's not that bad. It doesn't hurt as bad as a paper cut, for example. Then again, hardly anything does. But so the way that I once they get embedded in my skin, once they do catch me, which they do, the best ways I have found to get them out is either grab the cane by the end leaves, those new growth leaves on the very end of the cane, grab those and pull the cane away from me, and then perhaps even tuck it behind another cane. Sometimes because of the thorns all along these, they'll kind of hold on to each other and hold each other out of your way then. It doesn't always work. Sometimes they come whipping back at you. But it works quite often, and if you pull it by those end leaves, you don't get your fingers jagged as much. If you try to grab it by the cane, unless you're really, really careful, you're going to prick your fingers. So end leaves, best way to do it. Or if it's in my arm, for example, you can see all these scratches, but look at how superficial they are. I mean, it does hurt when you first get scratched, but these are from yesterday. By tomorrow, yesterday and today, by tomorrow, they'll probably be mostly gone. They're really superficial. If they stick in your arm, say, and the cane's coming over here, it's stuck in your arm, a good way to release your arm is to just roll it down and around. And the reason you do that is because then the thorns pull out straight. Whereas if you just yank your arm like this, which if you're in a hurry, you're not going to want to fiddle with it as much, and you probably will be inclined to just rip your arm. And if you do that, if you just yank your arm away straight, those thorns pull down in and rake you more, is what I've found. So, you know, if you roll it away, then it works a little bit better. Also, if you want to, you can wear a hat. Yeah, you're out in the sun quite a bit, as you can see. I mean, part of my berry bushes are in shade, but part are in bright sun. And even what's in the shade, it's partial shade. So, you know, I am out in the sun. And generally when I am, I wear a hat of some sort. But when I'm harvesting berries, I never do. Not these thorny berries. I never wear a hat. And the reason is, just as those thorns grab your other clothing and they grab your skin, they'll also grab your hat. And there is nothing to me more frustrating than trying to wear a hat out to harvest these things, because they're constantly grabbing your hat and pulling on it. And if you don't have a chin strap, it pulls the hat right off your head every few minutes. If it grabs onto your hat and you catch it and you want to take your hat off to work on getting those thorns out of your hat, to get the canes disattached from your hat, so to speak, you pull the canes across your neck when you do that. If you're not thinking, you pull the, you know, you're pulling the canes, and a scratch on your neck, that does hurt. Oh my, yeah, no, I don't like that. And also it seems to happen constantly, so you're constantly fighting with it. So also, if you have a chin strap, it grabs your hat and, you know, pulls your head back as you walk along. Not fun. So what I do is I go hatless, and I have long curly hair. You can't really tell right now because I brushed it, so now it just looks like this huge frizzy bush. But it's really curly, so there are always knots in it anyway. So it gives more things for these thorns to grab, and they do. They grab my hair. They don't seem to go into my scalp all that much, probably just because I've kind of learned to position myself in such a way that they don't. I don't know. They don't tend to get the whole way to my scalp through my hair, but what I do is I just leave them there as I'm working an area. I'm harvesting all the berries from a certain area, and there's this cane attached to my hair, and I just leave it there as I'm working. And then when I move on to the next area and walk away, I just pull. And sure, it pulls my hair, and it, you know, but it doesn't rip out clumps of it. It does pull though, but it's just too annoying trying to fiddle with it to get it detached from my hair. So that's how I do that. If you don't have hair, they are going to rake your scalp, and you know, you might not find that you have as much problem with a cap, say, as I do, that it doesn't annoy you as much, and that you'd rather do that than let them scratch your head. And you know, I understand that, you know, it's to each his own, but these are tips that I'm giving because they're things that I have found over the years work for me. Now we're going to move on to the container that you use in order to harvest, because unless you're just eating a few berries off of the bushes and you know, you aren't taking anything with you, you're going to need to put them in something, right? Well, as you've seen, if you watched the previous video, I often use plastic shopping bags. You know, you've gone to the store, you've forgotten your tote, and so you end up coming home with plastic shopping bags, and I like giving them more use, as much use as possible before I dispose of them. So I will use them to harvest out here in the garden, which is usually a good thing. With most plants, it works really nicely. But with these berries, it's not really the most ideal thing to use. And the reasons are, first of all, the berries themselves are very delicate. So you put them in this bag, it doesn't have a solid form, it doesn't have solid sides. And you know, the berries are so delicate that as you're walking along, that bag's hanging there and things, a lot of them will actually get crushed, will get squashed, will get ruined by this. I'm harvesting every day. I get a bumper crop. I don't mind that some of them, as I'm harvesting, are ruined in the bag. I still use them. I use the juice, you know. I dump the contents of the bag out into another container when I go in the house, you know, if I've done it that way. And when I use the bags, it's just because I'm in a hurry and the bags are close to hand and I don't have to go looking for them, whereas I'd have to go and look for a container, so I grab a bag. But it's not ideal. Also, it's really a flimsy material, this plastic, so the thorns will grab it and they'll rip holes in it, and you can actually lose a lot of your berries out of that, which is a lot of work you've then wasted. So I don't really recommend them as being the most ideal thing, but it does work. In a pinch, it does work, and I do use them. What I don't use is any kind of cloth bag, because just like it's grabbing a hold of your clothing, your hats, your hair, it's going to grab these cloth bags, the canes and the thorns, and it's going to stick, and it's going to be a constant source of annoyance to you. And in addition to that, the berries that break in there, and a lot will, because like the plastic bags, you know, a cloth bag has no solid form to it, and those berries are going to get crushed, and you know, they're going to stain your bag, and that might irritate you as well. What I advise is using a plastic container or a metal container. You know, if you're really graceful, perhaps you want to use a glass container. I don't, because I would drop it, it would break, and then I'd probably trip and fall on the broken glass. I'm not graceful. So I never use glass in harvesting berries. Sometimes I'll use a metal bowl or some kind of bucket that I only use for food, or I will use, and this is my favorite thing to use as a container for collecting these types of berries, or any type of berry for that matter, is a plastic container with a lid that sticks, you know, that seals or something, just as long as it stays on. And as I'm picking the berries and putting them in there, the lid's off, of course, and I harvest everything I can from one area. But when I go to move to the next area, I put that lid on. And the reason I do that is because, you know, you're fighting with these thorns grabbing you, and you might have a lot of underbrush that you're having to walk through. You might trip or just get your arm jerked, and then some berries fall out of the container, or you drop the container and all of your berries go flying, and then all that hassle you've gone through has been for nothing. You've just wasted your work. But if you put the lid on and it holds on there, even if you drop it, you're fine. You're fine. The berries are here. They're still all in the container. You're good. So, you know, that's my favorite kind of container to use for harvesting. As I've said, you know, it's not always the container I use, but it is the one I think is best. And if you just are like, well, this makes me not want to ever harvest these berries ever, the talks of getting, you know, attacked by these things that scratch me. You can get thornless varieties of a lot of these. You can also, there's a method you can use to grow them that'll avoid this hassle anyway, and that's growing them in an espalier fashion. And what I mean by espalier, what that means is you are growing a plant like a tree or a bush or a shrub along a wall or a fence or lattice work, or even the sides of, say, an arbor or an archway, and you train them up that flat surface. Now, if you're growing it just up that flat surface, things are spread out. You're not having to reach in amongst other canes to get to all your berries. They're all just right there, and you just pluck them off, avoiding the scratching. And you know, so it is a good method if you want the thornless varieties and don't want to even have any risk, well, not have much risk of getting scratched. And the way that you do it is, as you're growing it up this surface, training it there, a cane grows up, okay? Let's say you have a wall. If you're using a wall as your growing surface, you've probably taken a piece of wire and strung it straight across that wall and screwed it in on either end, you know, attaching it to things that screw it on, or nails or whatever on either end. So you've got a little distance away from the wall, you have these wires, and they're straight across, and those will be the supports. You might even want some upright ones as well. And you know, the same thing with a fence. Lattice work, you already have basically a structure there that you can use for this. You don't need extra wires and things if you don't want to. But what you do is you take your cane that you want to grow up against the wall and you attach it there, most likely with, say, a loosely tied piece of twine, or a loosely attached zip tie, something like that. You want to keep it a little bit loose because you don't want to strangle the plant, but that'll hold it there against your flat surface as it grows. And then you'll cut any canes to the ground that can't be grown up there, that are further away from your flat surface and you can't grow up it. You'll cut those away so that they're not in your way, so that you don't have extraneous things growing. And you'll attach to your surface that you're working, every here and there, you'll attach this plant so it keeps it nice and flat there, and you've got that surface to work with. If you do that, you've avoided all these other problems. So let me think if there's anything that I missed of the things that I wanted to tell you guys. Container, the clothes that you wear, how to get out of the thorns if they get you, espalier, and thornless berries. I think we've covered it all. I can't think of anything else, but if you have any questions, or if you're someone else who's run into some problems while you're harvesting and you found ways to make it less of a problem, please drop a comment down in the comment section. I'm sure we'd all like to hear it. I know I would, and you know, it might help somebody else too along the way. So, and if you have any questions that you want to ask me, drop those in. I'll do my best to answer them. And I guess that's it for now. I'm gonna go. I've done a little bit of harvesting, and now I'm going to plant some Swiss chard today in an area in which I had planted pepper plants, and I have big holes where I planted each of them. Apparently a chipmunk had a taste for pepper seeds, so, and they were hot pepper seeds, so I don't know, strange little chipmunk, but they're all gone. So I'm going to use that space for Swiss chard now, and I'm going to get that planted, and I'll be talking to you again hopefully later today even. In the meantime, have a great day. Get out there, get your hands dirty, enjoy yourself, and like I said before, you have any neat stories you want to share with us, feel free. And I hope you join us again, and we'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.